Hey everyone, welcome to this special edition Bankless live stream. This has never happened before. We have Udi Wertheimer on the Bankless podcast. I thought I'd never say it. Udi, welcome to Bankless, man. It's great to have you.
I'm surprised as much as you are. It's great to be here. Thank you for hosting, guys.
Well, this is going to be a lot of fun. Let me give folks context for this. Of course, as always, thanks to the sponsors that made this possible: Gemini, Balancer, AAVE, and Uniswap. We appreciate you guys. Special thanks also to CMS Holdings. He was the person that really made this possible. 100K goes to Gitcoin thanks to his contribution. He is funding this episode. He wanted it to happen. And thanks to the Bankless DAO for deciding where the funds go. Udi, the purpose of this episode, I'm told, is for you to pitch us on Hypersound Money. That is the Binance BNB token. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. Well, before I start, do you guys want to spend like a couple minutes?
We're just getting ready here.
Oh, cool. This is awesome. Like, does everyone see all of us? This is awesome.
Oh, yeah.
I love this. So do you guys want to spend like a couple of minutes talking about like the last 24 hours? Or are we going to ignore they happen? Because we're live.
Oh, let's do that. Look, man, this is your agenda. So let's talk about that. What do you want to talk about?
Well, I mean, it's exciting. It's exciting. Did you see the conspiracy theory going on about
is it about Elon
presumably
Musk?
Well, that's another one. There's one about the Chinese government trying to affect Bitcoin price in order to liquidate someone specifically.
Who?
Oh, that's
who
interesting.
Specifically? It's not you.
I mean, I don't think so. No, because I don't have my positions public on DeFi, so it's harder. But
they're not under your ENS address. Wait, do you own any ENS addresses, Udi?
Yeah, who owns?
I think someone owns my name. It's not me. Someone owns it.
You should have that.
Yeah, you should.
I feel like
have
you
that.
should have that.
Yeah, I know.
Three letters is really expensive, but
if the owner of that watches this, well, we can negotiate something. Maybe.
I'm wondering, maybe CMS Holdings will pay for that too. It's the public good for Udi. CMS Holdings, I know you're listening. Thanks for that again. Okay,
yeah,
so like,
really thanks for that.
What do you think? Yeah. What do you think is the cause for the drop? If it's not,
well,
conspiracy.
I think it's first of all, it could be this conspiracy theory. Who knows? But I think that we tend to like try to rationalize those things, right? Like you see the price go down, and you're like, oh, is that because of Elon's tweets? Is that because of the China news? Is that because of the whatever? And I think the market was just pretty vulnerable and kind of bearish in the last couple of months. Like, of course, a lot of things were going off and exploding, but everyone was, kind of chilly and afraid.
There was
kind
a
of
lot
scared
of
heights, right?
There was a lot of just like noise, a lot of crazy stuff happened. Like there were definite like top signals because like, come on. Like Dogecoin derivatives are all of a sudden sustainable. Like what the hell?
Stupid.
Yeah, I mean, there's no shortage of top signals, but also it's been my opinion that like the entire next 5 years is just going to be top signal after top signal. So I wasn't really ready to call it a top.
Udi, do you blame Elon Musk for this though? Real talk, man.
I do not. No, I think that honestly, maybe I'll use this opportunity to say a few words about that. I've seen a lot of people like kind of lashing at Elon Musk. I think it's kind of silly. He said what he thinks. Maybe it's psyops. I don't know, but whatever. Like, he's been very supportive of Bitcoin specifically and the cryptocurrency space in general. And I think that just lashing out at him is kind of funny. Like, either listen to what the guy has to say or like just leave it alone. Like, I don't see why. Maybe, I think maybe people can actually learn a thing or two from this guy because he might not be a cryptocurrency expert, but he does know a thing or two about not just money with PayPal, but he knows, yes, but also he knows about things like, how memes work and how people react to stuff. And, he's not stupid, right?
Right.
He didn't get there by accident. So I think we can learn a thing or two. But
yeah, is this all our fault? I mean, didn't we put him on a pedestal? And I say we as the crypto community, maybe Bitcoin specifically, but the crypto community, sure. We put him on a pedestal when he bought a bunch of Bitcoin and added it to Tesla's balance sheet. I feel what about the argument that we set ourselves up for this? We put the guy on a pedestal,
Oh, yeah.
and now he's like shitting all over the pedestal, and people are upset about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that like it's kind of hard to avoid. And I think that similarly, if he had bought some ETH, and even more ridiculously, if he would have bought some Cardano or whatever, you would have seen the respective communities reacting the same way, pretty much, I would expect, right? Like people would be very thrilled about it for a very long time, and he will become their hero. And then, yeah, almost unavoidably, there will be disappointment at some point. But I think, this story probably continues for a while. I don't think this is the end of the Elon Musk story in cryptocurrency.
Plans. He's got plans. They're erratic plans, and they're perhaps nonsensical, but they're plans nonetheless. And he's got them.
Something big's going down.
Yeah. I think that people vastly underestimate what he's planning, and it probably isn't necessarily going to be things that Bitcoiners are in love with. But I think he has some things in store, probably.
There's generally not a lot of plans that Bitcoiners are in love with to begin with. So,
well, I think
already.
Do we have like a Getcoin donation address that we can share with people? It would have been awesome if people could send some money to Getcoin every time you zing me.
Oh wow! Yeah. We should do that, David.
How much money can we get in the pot? Yeah, I have to pull my glasses down because my sunglasses are polarized and I can't actually see my second screen.
David can't actually see when you're playing the sunglasses black. Thing. He can't actually see his screen when he does that.
I have my brightness set very high so that I can see anything at all.
David's gonna figure that out while he's doing that, Udi.
I
want to know, the people want to know if this is the end of crypto. I mean,
I've heard it.
Bitcoin down.
I heard crypto's no longer the future.
Crypto. So is crypto dead? Udi, this is a pretty big drop. There's a lot of people who are new, first cycle, unicyclers. As David and I call them. They're new to crypto.
That's a good name.
They're not funny, this is a concerning drop. They were not anticipating this. Is crypto dead, sir? Answer that for us.
It isn't. It is a concerning drop, though. I can see why someone would be concerned, especially if it's your first time, you're just not used to it. But this is how those things kind of work, because things just cannot go straight up. It's not possible. Eventually, we can all be kind of friends and say, oh, we will not sell. And promise each other that we'll never sell, but eventually someone sells.
Eventually it goes up too fast and be like, ooh, I said I wasn't going to sell, but that got too fast. Now I got to sell.
Yeah. And that's kind of why, all of the consensus games are kind of difficult. They're not trivial because it turns out that, coordinating between people who have different motivations is kind of difficult. So coordinating, no one sells forever is probably not going to work. And it's natural. That's fine. And it's going to be deep corrections. That's fine too. I do not think it's the end. There's a certain chance that this is the end. The chance always exists. I think it's very, very small.
Talking about chances that always exist, I want to put on I've never put on my ETH maxi hat to the nth degree, but I want to do that. Really,
you haven't?
Quick. Not to the end, not to the complete.
Never seen that from David.
So I want to put on all 17 of my ETH maxi hats and talk about something that I think has maybe 3 or 4% weight to it. So and I'm also a little bit of a conspiracy theorist, and so here's my conspiracy about how this market just happened. Right, Ether. Ultrasound money has been just crushing Bitcoin in Bitcoin terms for the past 6 weeks or something, 6 very strong green weekly candles. There's only been I think 10 total weeks where Ether has been higher than Bitcoin in Bitcoin terms. And so and these systems are alive, right? They're kind of alive organisms. And Bitcoin, we Suzu talked about how people were flying all across the world to retrieve Bitcoin out of cold storage to sell it for Ether. Bitcoin was just flat and also kind of down for the past months. There was Bitcoin maxi pain happening while Ether
capitulation?
Was perhaps capitulation ? While Ether was just climbing. And so I think that Bitcoin dumped to stop Ether from flipping it.
Wow.
I ascribe like a
cool.
2 to 3% weight to that belief.
That's an interesting theory. Like who can do that? Who has that's
Oh,
because it's kind
I
of
believe
suicide.
like the Bitcoin
saying,
hive mind.
I do not want ETH to flip Bitcoin, so I sold. I just left.
It's the poison pill.
Hey, it makes sense if you don't think about it.
I will go down with. Yeah.
I got a question for you. Why are there so many people shilling cat coin in the YouTube comments? Do you know anything about this?
We will never know, right? Like, I think that whatever happens in this episode, I think people are gonna forever overanalyze what's going on.
Sir, do you
what's
own
behind the
Catcoin?
Scenes.
Answer the question.
I do not know what Catcoin is. I don't even know what it is.
It's not even
CAT,
it's CATE. It's like Kate coin, but then they got the cat emojis. Anyways,
they're trying to make.
I think the three of us are too old for this, to be honest.
Oh, I'm
still in my 20s.
David is super young.
It's way too old, man.
David is super young. I'm the boomer of Bankless. If you didn't know, now you know. Udi, I tweeted something from you. I've maybe done that one other time, but I tweeted something from you.
Yeah. What was it? I forgot.
In the past week or two. I'm paraphrasing here, but you basically said, even I have to admit that ETH has completely slaughtered Bitcoin. And you said something to the effect that more Bitcoiners need to admit this too, right? And like I
think you mean the Bitcoin price, right?
Bitcoin price.
Yeah, so I think.
And you just showed the ratio. You just showed the ratio. You kind of let that tweet stand. And it was, I felt like you were reflecting some honesty of like what's really going on, right? That maybe some Bitcoiners are kind of like plugging their ears on right now. Like they hear no evil, see no evil. Like they don't want to see what's happening. And you just surfaced that to them. Do you think that this is temporary? Do you think that this is, or do you think that there is going to be a flippening and that flippening will be sustained?
I think that during bull markets, and we're kind of slipping into what I meant to say later, but let's do that. I think during bull markets are war, and I think it's a good way to look at it. They're war in the sense that there's a lot of money coming into the space, but it's not unlimited. There's a limited amount of a lot of money coming into the space, and there are a lot of projects fighting over those inflows, and for obvious reasons. And during those debates and wars and whatever, you can either try to kind of actively pull more of those funds into your so-called battery, and we'll get back to those terms that I liked later, or you can not do anything. And Bitcoin is designed to not do anything. So Bitcoin is designed to be inflexible, and being inflexible means that on one hand, it cannot create more supply. It cannot dampen the effect of the inflows coming in. That's good for Bitcoin holders. But on the other hand, it also cannot do anything to become more attractive during those times where a lot of funds are coming into the space. Everyone else, pretty much everyone else, can react to the fact that money is coming into the space. And I think that the fact that and reaction can be a ton of things. It can be changing the monetary properties of the system. It can be marketing related. It can be a ton of reactions. Bitcoin cannot really do any of those things. So I think for that reason, it is very reasonable to expect during bull markets, other coins will outpace Bitcoin, and they will continue to outpace Bitcoin as long as the bull market continues. You can put like a specific goal, like the flippening, and say, does it happen? Does it not happen? But honestly, I think it's very arbitrary. Like, the bull market can stop before, the bull market can stop afterwards. And that, in my opinion, is going to be kind of what determines what this looks like. But the question is not like you in that sense, you can look at coins that are not Bitcoin as sort of leveraged plays, right? You can hold Bitcoin as a kind of more solid somewhat less risky investment, but also with a lower potential return. And you can look at the other coins, and they have somewhat derivative like qualities to them. And they can have higher returns. They also can have higher risk. We saw that, for example, yesterday, Bitcoin took the smallest percentage hit on one hand. Like pretty much all of the market, not all of it, but most of the market took a much higher percentage hit. On the other hand, I would assume most altcoins, I think, are higher now than they were when Bitcoin was last at 40K.
Wait, you used the term altcoin, so you just triggered me. You just triggered me. Hold on.
I know.
Is ETH an altcoin, sir?
Well, how do you define altcoin?
I don't. I think it's a meaningless definition, personally. I think it's an outdated definition of a time when there was Bitcoin and there were all of these forks of Bitcoin, and they were by definition alts of Bitcoin.
That's what I think call altcoins. Altcoins are Bitcoin forks or clones.
Litecoin is an altcoin. Yeah. Right? Definitely. Dogecoin. Dogecoin is an altcoin. Ether is not an altcoin. And I feel like it's a relic type of definition, a world that is like pre-DeFi, pre-understanding these assets as capital assets or commodities, and also store of values. So
you could argue that. I think that words, language, terms, they mostly stem from culture and not from necessarily being the best scientifically correct way to describe something.
Oh, I agree with that.
And when we look at, I think the reason that Ethereum has been, or Ether specifically, has been called an altcoin is because it presented itself as an altcoin early on. If you look at the early days of Ethereum, it was literally being sold as Bitcoin 2.0. That's literally how it was marketed. So I think that's where the term altcoin
is that wrong, though?
Came from.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not
Bitcoin 2.0.
I'm not assigning morality to these things. I'm just telling you the facts. The facts are that this is how Ethereum was presented, and I think this is why it's been called an altcoin. And you could argue maybe it's not an alternative coin, but that's not why it's called an altcoin. It's called an altcoin because of the culture that started when Ethereum started.
I'm curious here. So you said during a bull market, it's like war, right? It's all out war, like one coin versus another, one community versus another. Do you have a side in this war? Whose side are you on?
That's a great question. I'm on my own side, and I think that's the most reasonable position for most people to be in. And I do believe that Bitcoin can be very valuable, but to the world, and I think it can offer something that other chains cannot, including Ether. But either it succeeds or it doesn't. That's not the entirety of my goal in life. I think people are there's this term of Bitcoin maximalist. Honestly, I do not like the term. I know that some people kind of adopted it. I never did. I never call myself a Bitcoin maximalist. Whenever someone tells me, "Oh, you're just a Bitcoin maximalist," I say, "I don't think I am." I don't know. Like, it depends on what you mean, but I don't think I am. I happen to think that Bitcoin is the most interesting thing that's available in what we call crypto, but it's not the only thing. And like, the one example I try to kind of tell people, usually on the Bitcoin side, by the way, because I don't think it's very interesting to people on the other side, but on the Bitcoin side, I try to tell people that, and I assume some Bitcoiners are kind of listening to this now. So I'm trying to tell people, well, assume that Apple tomorrow announces that they're going to issue their stock on some blockchain. I don't know why, but assume they did. And if they did that, then it immediately becomes the largest market cap crypto, right? And it's immediately going to be put at the top of coin market cap. So if that happens, did something change? Did your perception of Bitcoin change? Did your perception of the cryptocurrency space changed? I don't know. Like, what does that even mean? So just the assumption that nothing can ever be bigger than Bitcoin on the website that's called coinmarketcap.com is kind of absurd. Like, it depends on what they choose to list there, right? So, you know, there's no way that Bitcoin is going to be the biggest asset in the world forever. I think that's unlikely. I don't see why anyone would think that. So if that's the goal, like, be the top asset ever, it seems tough to achieve. So, like, you know, I think people can accept that there are going to be other things. There already are. Like, a lot of it's a funny position, you know, because I know a lot of Bitcoiners that I know. Like, how do you define a Bitcoiner? Is that someone who owns Bitcoin? So a lot of those Bitcoiners that I know, they also have other assets, like they own an apartment, for example. They own maybe some stocks. They own some clothes, right? There's this joke about not owning a car, not owning clothes, and not owning chairs, which, I mean, it's a funny joke, but I hope I hope no one's walking around naked because they want to buy as many Bitcoins as possible. So it's just not realistic, this idea that, oh, I only own Bitcoin. I think very few people actually think that. And then, you know, once you accept that other assets exist in the world, and some of them might be digital, I guess it depends. I don't see a reason to only hold Bitcoin, if that's the question.
So Udi, the YouTube comments is once again clamoring for our conversation around BNB as hypersound money. And
right.
Let me do some extrapolation, because you think that, you know, perhaps there's one day where Bitcoin is, you know, not going to be the #1 crypto asset. I personally am of the disposition that one day ultrasound money will become the #1 like asset in the world, just because of the nature of ultrasound money. But I'm willing to take my Ethereum maxi cap off, because if you're telling me that there's this thing called hypersound money, which could in theory go even more ultra than ultrasound money, like, I gotta, for the sake of my bags and for the sake of my kids' future, like, I gotta listen, man. So, like, what's hypersound money? And, like, because I'm trying to get sold on this real quick.
Drop the alpha.
Right. So look, I think I might try to recap a little bit from the Justin Drake episode, because maybe some of the people.
How many times did you listen to that? Just one time, or like 4 times?
No, I talked to Justin. I talked to Justin about this before. I think it was before he recorded it.
Justin talked to you before he talked to us?
Did you give him the idea?
No, I'm sure.
Are you the originator of ultrasound?
So, you know, I don't think so. No. What happened was, I did talk to Justin a little bit. So and he showed me, you know, the materials, like the blog post or whatever it was. So I wasn't foreign to the ideas when I first viewed the episode or listened to the episode. I thought it was good. I thought it was a good one, but I want to kind of recap quickly, because I assume some people are watching this now did not watch it, because they're probably like from the Bitcoin side of things.
Well, there's also this, like, apparently this cat coin community that I think we can assume did not listen to the ultrasound money episode. They need some help too.
Right. So I actually thought it was a pretty good analogy that said that, like, the battery would be the value that's going to be stored in whatever asset we're talking about. And you can put, like, the asset itself isn't the value. The asset represents the value. You can put value or quote unquote energy into that battery, which means that each unit will be worth more, or you can take value out of it, which is what happens when people sell and take their dollars or whatever it is out of the system. And then there's less energy in that battery. And I guess this concept is familiar to a lot of people. And what Justin did is he kind of added this engine to this system, where he says, well, the battery cannot stand alone. There also needs to be an engine that needs to function somehow, and then that engine can help charge the battery.
And specifically, the design of the engine can be more or less efficient, right? And ideally, you want an efficient engine.
Right. So that engine would be, in the case of Bitcoin, Ethereum, it would be the consensus mechanism, or the blockchain, if you will, or whatever you call it. Right. And you would say, well, presumably those assets like Bitcoin and Ether cannot necessarily really function if the engine for some reason stops working, because they're not individual things that just live in the physical world. They're not atoms. They need the blockchain to function. And if something happens to that, then they might lose their value. And I think, sidebar, I think there's an interesting point there, because there's this assumption that the goal of the engine is to maintain the value of the battery. I think that's arguable. Specifically, the engine, what it does is it helps, or it allows creating transactions. It allows moving funds between people. And if the engine malfunctions, then you get things like rollbacks. Like you can find yourself in a situation where you try to create a transaction, and then someone rolled that transaction back. And that's, with proof of work, that's a problem. There's no finality there. And technically, someone could try to roll back a transaction, after it happened, and then someone might be in problem. But that's not the same as the asset losing value. And I think there is a reasonable criticism against proof of work, which is people currently expect that they just work. And they mostly only work right now because no one tried to attack them really very seriously. There was never a super serious attack on the proof of work mechanism in Bitcoin. But you could imagine a situation where there is an imbalance with the fees, which is what Justin calls the fuel, the fees that enter the engine in order to keep it working. You could imagine a situation where there's not enough fees and not enough fuel in order to keep that engine rolling. And then what happens, though, is not that Bitcoin collapses. What happens, though, is that the transaction mechanism might suffer. And the question then is, are people able to adapt to that? Are people able to adapt to a situation where the engine is not super reliable? And that can be, using layer 2 networks or whatever you would use in order to not rely on the engine to always be there for you. And that's a question. That's a question which we don't know the answer to because we never tried. And indeed, it's concerning that we don't know what things are going to look like when fees are going to be different. But I just wanted to point it out that if the engine has issues with fuel, that does not necessarily mean that the battery dies. All it means that transactions might have some irregularities, but that does not necessarily mean that value comes out of the system.
It might mean swap out your vehicles, but go on.
Sure, it might, but then it depends on what you use it for. It depends on what you use it for. So, anyways, the thing though, with Bitcoin, if we have this issue with the fuel, then really the engine might stop. Ethereum post EIP 1559 kind of changes that. The fuel in form of transactions, which Justin kind of calls grade B fuel, because it's not inflation, it's not reliable, which would be grade A fuel. So that fuel is not used necessarily to run the engine. It's kind of used to negate inflation. It's used to negate the sourcing of grade A fuel, which would be inflation. And that is great in theory, but it suffers from the same problem that Bitcoin suffers from, which is that those fees are still unexpected. The amount of fees, or the amount of fuel of type B fuel, grade B fuel that you can source is unpredictable and unexpected. So what Ethereum is kind of doing, it says, okay, because we cannot predict the supply of grade B fuel, we will not make the system dependent on it. We will not grind to a halt if we have a lack of grade B fuel, a lack of transaction fees. But we will increase the supply if that happens. and that's fine. That's a reasonable, it's a reasonable trade-off. It does mean, however, that Ethereum is only as ultrasound as it can source grade B fuel. And now you might say, okay, so I look at what does it mean? It's only as ultrasound as it can source transaction fees. And anyone who's anywhere around the cryptocurrency space lately can tell that Ethereum has an abundance of transaction fees. That doesn't seem to be an issue. Like people are willing to pay.
I can show that.
Yeah, go.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's no doubt that people are willing to pay transaction fees on Ethereum right now. The question is, does that continue forever? And in order to answer that, you have to answer the question of why are people paying those fees right now?
Should we just pause here, David? Are the cat people fine?
I mean, cat people are gone. Cat people are gone.
Right.
They just stopped.
We lost them.
Because that was a great articulation of the Justin Drake episode.
Right.
Like, well said.
Is that why we lost them?
Yeah, maybe they were like not ready to listen to it.
Not enough cat coin shilling.
Yeah. Anyways, so the issue with the fees is that right now people are paying them arguably because they can't find the same level of service anywhere else. Mm-hmm. They're willing to pay those fees because that's where they find what they need, whether if it's liquidity or it's the specific tokens they're looking for or whatever it is. But then in order to be able to continue, and that was, if you were around in 2017, for example, then the case was pretty similar back then. It was just for other things. People were not sourcing liquidity on Ethereum. They were participating in ICOs on Ethereum. And the gas fees shot up back then as well. And what happened over time is that the gas fees shot back down, and like a naive explanation for that would be, well, it's because the bull market ended, but and that's concerning too. But I'm not sure that's the reason. I think that what happened was that this use case of ICOs moved elsewhere. So people who wanted to raise funds in order to sell tokens did not stop doing that. They in fact continued doing that for the entire time. They're doing that now too, but they're not doing that in the same way. They do not use the same inefficient, smart contract-based ICO sales that they used to use then, because it turns out that they do not provide any extra value over just doing it somewhere else. There's no network effect in doing the sale on top of Ethereum. If that's too expensive, you can just do it, on a web page, or you can do it on another platform, or you can do it on a Telegram chat. People will send you an address and you will send them the coins, and then they will send you back the tokens, whatever it is. It turns out that you don't need the inefficiencies of doing that in a permissionless smart contract system. So the question becomes, does that happen again? Does that happen again, that the use case that currently drives fees up moves somewhere else? Because if it does, then there is no mechanism that burns the supply on Ethereum. Fees can drop back down, and then the supply can start going back up, which might be okay, but then it's not ultrasound money. It's just inflationary money. To that point, by the way, and you guys can stop me at any, but it's not a speech, so it's okay.
All right. So I want to pause and maybe recap where we are so far, right?
Yeah.
ETH fees are high right now. You recognize that. You see that. We recognize that.
It is what?
ETH fees are high right now. Block-based demand is very high. You're posing the question, that's true right now, but I think what you're saying is ETH block space is really a commodity. Like, that demand could shift anywhere else. And we saw it shift somewhere else or like evaporate into thin air in 2018, 2019 with the last bear cycle. And I think you're setting us up to say something to the effect of, well, all of that demand on Ethereum right now is temporal. That's going to move someplace else, maybe to a hypersound money platform. I feel like that's really what you're setting up. Is that the case?
I'm setting us up to the case that it might happen, not necessarily to one specific blockchain, but I'm setting us up to the fact that we cannot predict how people are going to continue to use Ethereum as a platform a year from now. All we can do is look at the past and see, well, so far, things that found use case on Ethereum eventually moved somewhere else. ICOs became IEOs and then IDOs, and they just moved somewhere else.
Isn't that what's supposed to happen,
right?
Udi?
Yeah.
Like, isn't it supposed to be the case that things that need to be maximally decentralized and maximally permissionless and maximally censorship resistant will stay on something like Ethereum, which has those characteristics and those attributes? Economic activity that doesn't require those attributes will just move somewhere else, to a side chain, to a Binance chain, to a Tron, to a Google spreadsheet, which, by the way, I think you've compared Ethereum to before, sort of a shared Google spreadsheet, right? But doesn't that one discount the fact that like that hasn't happened at all? We're seeing a massive amount of block space demand on Ethereum, repeated in cycles, that no other chain is able to replicate. And B, doesn't that totally commoditize what Ethereum is offering versus like Ethereum block space is different than Binance block space or Coinbase block space or Kraken block space, right? Those are like centralized ledgers. We had those before. We had those before Bitcoin. We had those before any crypto networks. The new thing that we're creating is a decentralized consensus shared ledger system, right? You can't just replicate that in these other commodity systems. Go.
So the thing is, people are replicating that, and we don't have to go as far as BSC. We can go to Polygon on quote unquote on Ethereum. Just in the last few days and weeks, we can see
show
that.
A chart. This is by the way, BSC versus Polygon. So, like Polygon catching up.
Do you have that Polygon versus or BSC versus Ethereum, for example? Because what you'll find.
Are you talking about in terms of BNB asset price versus Ethereum asset price, Ether asset price?
No, I'm talking in the terms of number of transactions. Volume. Yeah.
Okay.
So
well,
you could,
but pause there for a second, because a transaction on Ethereum is different than a transaction on Binance chain, is different than a transaction on Coinbase's central ledger, right? Like, why not just compare transactions on Coinbase to the Coinbase's database that's not like we can't see, that's not public, to transactions on Ethereum? If you're going to compare transaction, like transaction volume is the wrong metric, right? Like AWS does a ton of transactions. The Visa network does a ton of transactions. PayPal does a ton of transactions. Feels like you're comparing apples to oranges here.
I think that they're obviously not the same in the sense that they're not limited, right? Like there's no limit to how many transactions you can do on, or there is a limit, but it's much higher to how much transaction you could do on, let's say, BSC, which means that if both are maximally used, then Binance chain will have more transactions. The Ethereum chain, let's say it's maximally used, and it is, then it will have a limited amount of transactions, not more than that.
But it will have maximized transaction fees. It will capture more fees for the same number of transactions.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about that, because the way that BSC does that is very different. The way that BSC does that is they recognizes that in order, the fees that come into the system are not predictable. And because they're not predictable, you don't want to use them in order to affect the monetary supply of the system. Or more correctly, you don't want to rely on them in order to be deflationary. So what BNB does, it kind of flips the whole thing on its head. Instead of being a consensus engine that is a consensus mechanism that is the engine for BNB is actually something completely different. The engine for BNB is Binance. It's Binance, the business, Binance, the community, Binance whatever you want to call it.
Binance
the bank. You can call it whatever you want. I think it's bigger than that. I think Binance is bigger than a data center. Data centers are, a technical thing.
You're not concerned about that? You're not concerned about Binance being bigger than a data center, than a bank? You're not. I thought this whole movement was about.
I think you're trying to make
centralization.
A moral case. So
don't we have to when we talk about money?
To make a moral case?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't think we have to, but we can. So I think that I don't think money is moral. I think, there's this saying that, I know it in Hebrew, I don't know what it would be in English, but money is money. When someone reaches up to you and hands you some money, you're not going to look back at how he got this money, because if you would, it's going to be very difficult for you to, it is what it is.
Well, when I stand in line, I don't cut in line. I don't
it.
think about morals. I just fall in line. And there's so many things I don't think about that I do that's moral, but I don't think about it because it's second nature. Same thing with money.
Right. So I think we can talk about is it moral to use something like BSC, and I think that it kind of depends on what you want to do. But if your goal is to have this so-called decentralized system, the centralized financial system, then you kind of very, very, very quickly you stumble upon trade-offs. And very quickly you realize that you cannot, or at least for now, you do not know how to be completely decentralized, right? There's those, one example, the most recent debate around that is probably the Polygon stuff, and how, some people are saying, well, Polygon is not decentralized, and there's this multi-sig admin key, and there's this, the way that the assets are held, and people can argue on that to no end. But I think the pragmatic view is, this is the best way we can make it work for now, and going forward, we'll see what we can improve, but that's the best way we know to do it for now. It's not as bad as some other things might have been.
So how the way I think of Polygon is like it's kind of overflow on Ethereum. So Ethereum's a settlement layer. Once it gets too expensive, the traffic overflows to Polygon. BSC, Binance Smart Chain, is similar, right? It is taking some of the traffic from Ethereum and offloading that to Binance Chain effectively. But still, like the highest value transactions, the most decentralized transactions, the bulk of actual payment for block space is happening on the most decentralized, permissionless DeFi system that is Ethereum. So it feels more like Binance Smart Chain.
How do you get to the number? Because you see that CakeSwap or PancakeSwap managed to kind of flip Uniswap for quite a while.
In fees?
No, not in fees. Not in fees.
Or in volume.
It definitely in volume. That's the activity. Right?
I think there was a day where
PancakeSwap
did flip Uniswap in fees. Maybe for a couple days.
I wouldn't be surprised to see something on Polygon flip something on Ethereum as well.
Absolutely.
Hang on, because on Polygon it's a little bit different than on Binance Smart Chain. With Binance Smart Chain, like the straight up transaction fees, both at the protocol layer, but also with PancakeSwap, everything collapses down to CZ at the end of the day. And we know CZ is a big old wash trader. Like, he does it on Binance all the time. Why wouldn't he do it on Binance Smart Chain? So when we see Pancake Swap generating a ton of fees, I'm like, oh,
is it real?
Great. Look, CZ is just taking money out of one pocket and just putting it into the other pocket. And now we have, you know, Pancake Swap doing more fee revenue than Uniswap. And that's why money is moral. Because it has these political arguments baked into it. Because when you see volume and fees on Uniswap, you know there's no one with the incentives to fake that. No one's going to burn cash just to pump up the volumes on Uniswap. That's why it's completely organic.
So if there's someone who has the incentive to, pump up the numbers of the Binance chain Pancake Swap, then there's certainly someone who has the same incentives for Uniswap. The question is, can they pay so much money because it's going to be more expensive on Ethereum? I do not think that it would make sense to say that there are no one who has the incentive with Ethereum-based projects. There most certainly is.
Who's going to pay the gas fees?
The difference is going to be, it's going to be more expensive. Right. So what the way that Ethereum projects kind of fixed that very early on is that they said, okay, we're going to do those subsidies. I don't mean Uniswap specifically, but they said, okay, we're going to do those subsidies. They're going to encourage people to use the project. And this will, well, for one thing, it's going to kick the numbers up, but also it's going to create the community around that project. And when you look at, for example, Binance chain, you can see that they did exactly the same. So you could argue, maybe it's CZ moving money from one pocket to the other. But I think you can be pretty sure that if CZ offers incentives, then the people who are taking it are not going to be just CZ. Assuming that you know that anyone could take up on it, then I don't see any reason why you would think that it's only CZ taking up on his own money. The main driver to those apps is those incentives. We all know this. What brings traffic, especially at this point in time, is mostly those incentives. And we know that those incentives exist on CZ's BSC. So I think we know fairly for certain that the traffic there is real and organic, because we know people are going to take up on those incentives. We don't need to be guessing that.
Let's suspend our doubt for a minute. Let's assume all of that traffic was 100% legit real. I still don't think it takes anything away from Ethereum. If anything,
it does not.
Binance Chain is competing with other layer 2s or side chains like Polygon and Coinbase, centralized exchanges like Coinbase and Kraken, and even its own like Binance centralized chain. It's not competing against Ethereum. In fact, it's like additive to Ethereum, because guess what Binance Chain did? Just adopted the EVM. And so like EVM is an Ethereum standard that further strengthens the tooling and infrastructure around Ethereum. Like,
and just in the same way that Binance copied ICOs off Ethereum to IEOs on Binance, it's just doing the same thing, just following in the wake of ultrasound money. I don't see how hypersound money could
We're not disagreeing.
It could be leading ultrasound
We're not disagreeing.
money.
Well, what is hypersound money then? Because we need to understand that before we leave this live stream for sure.
Yeah. So we're not disagreeing on Ethereum and Binance Smart Chain not competing. I totally agree with you. I think that there's no way that the two can compete because they each offer very different things. So they
each offer the EVM,
the thing that, what's that?
They each offer the EVM though. Those are very, very much the same things. I mean, how can you say that they offer very different things when Binance Smart Chain is just a fork off of Geth? It's literally just Ethereum.
I thought that was what you were saying. They're both offering different things. They're both offering different things because it's not about the technology. It's not about the code base that you fork. Just like, if you fork Bitcoin and call it Dogecoin, they're not going to be the same thing. Dogecoin is very interesting in my opinion, but it's not going to be the same thing as Bitcoin. Similarly, if you fork the code base of Ethereum, you don't get an exact copy of Ethereum. Because you don't have the same community, you don't have the same permissionlessness, you don't have the same engine we talked about. It's a different beast. So I don't think they're the same. The thing that is different, however, is the way that Binance Smart Chain can attract activity onto its ecosystem of apps. Mm-hmm. So on what I started saying before is for BNB, specifically BNB, the asset. So similarly to how for ETH, the engine would be the Ethereum blockchain, for BNB, the engine would be Binance itself. And the way that Binance itself gets fuel is also by fees, but those are not the Binance Smart Chain fees. Those are the Binance exchange fees,
which are pretty healthy. A lot. That's a lot of fees.
That's a lot of fees. That's a very, very healthy business, and Binance actually committed to burn 100 million BNB over a certain period of time by taking those fees and burning some of them, not all of them. The minimum that they promised to burn is, I think, 20%, but recently it has been more than that. And they're going to continue to do that until they burn 100 million tokens of the supply. What does that mean? That means, one, you are guaranteed to have a deflationary asset because BNB does not inflate. There's simply no way to inflate it. And it does burn fees.
Wait, there's no way to inflate BNB? What if CZ wills it?
Well, so that's an interesting question. What I tend to do is I tend to kind of try to, look at what the various communities are talking about and kind of trying, because that's the only thing you can do, kind of trying to assume or understand if they're going to back their promises. So if you look at something like Ethereum, for most of Ethereum's history, it kind of matched that idea of not inflating the supply more than was originally planned. I think that the rewards were cut down to, was it 2/3 or something around that, twice, I believe.
Got 5 Ether per block, 3 Ether per block, to where we are at right now at 2 Ether per block.
Yeah, right. Okay, so yeah, around that. And but then the Ethereum community actually did something kind of went under the radar, which was increasing the supply for what we call the merge, or for Ethereum 2.0, which actually increases the inflation schedule. Because right now, at this moment, we have the proof of work network that is inflating as usual, and we also have the proof of stake network that adds inflation to the proof of work network, and the two will soon be merged. And
then issuance goes to below 1%.
Ultrasound.
Well,
ultrasound money.
Issuance. The thing with Ethereum, as we said, the issuance is the issuance. The issuance is going to stay what it is. It's going to stay the increased pace that we talked about. But Ethereum can hope that the fees are going to sustain themselves, and then that will negate the effect of that increase in fees and in inflation, and maybe negate the effect of the entire inflation supply.
Just like how I hope
it's possible.
CZ burns BNB every single quarter. I hope he does. Fingers crossed.
Exactly. Well, we agree. We're kind of basing that on hope. We're basing on Ethereum. We're hoping that no one increases the inflation schedule again. Ethereum already did it once, and we're hoping it doesn't do it again. And
it's
with
different.
BNB, we're hoping that they don't inflate the supply.
So
but we know that both have communities that have, for many years, supported, this meme about not increasing the supply. I think that Ethereum kind of makes it more difficult because you don't know how many exactly exist without really delving into the details. You can, I'm not saying it's impossible, you can. You really kind of have to delve into the details. Actually, most of the counters of the Ethereum supply right now will not even include the supply on the Beacon chain, even though it's going to be merged very soon. So it's not easy to even know what the number is. On BNB, it's trivial. There are 200 million, 100 million of them are going to be burned, and then there will be 100 million at the end. If CZ tries to change that, of course he might. Anyone could try to change it. If he tries to change that, then he is going to stand in front of a community that is pretty strongly aligned with a very clear meme of having exactly 100 million tokens as the supply.
What's the
Ethereum,
current supply
we know
of BNB
for a fact
right now? What's the current supply?
I believe it's 170 million and something.
Yeah, that's
around
right.
170
That's
million.
right. With Ether, it's specifically 115.9 million.
Does that include the beacon chain?
No, because they're non-fungible yet. Once they're fungible, then we can talk.
Right. Well, but we know. So you see, we're talking though about Ethereum in a year from now, right? Where things are going to happen and Ethereum is going to be a bit different. And I think that the merge is a clear example of how the Ethereum supply or the Ethereum inflation rate can sometimes go up because
it can go up one time specifically as a means to an end to make it reduce the largest number possible ever. And so like while there, and it's actually not even the only time that like issuance actually increased, because there's a variance in block supply. And so while monetary policy...
Bitcoin does this too.
Yeah, right. Just like things change. Sometimes it goes up.
Bitcoin does what?
As a means to an end, it actually is as a strategy to reduce it to its most minimum number ever possible, making Ether #ultrasound money.
The proof of stake thing does not make the supply any smaller. It clearly only makes it bigger. What makes the supply maybe smaller is EIP 1559.
Right.
You could implement it without proof of stake.
Well, proof of stake
or
is
you could
about
implement
issuing the least possible.
Yeah, proof of stake is going to eliminate all the proof of work. So you're talking about a temporary slight increase.
Yeah.
But like if you look over the 3 to 5 year time horizon, right? Issuance is going to be way down. What you're talking about is something that's very temporary, right? And I would say within the social contract of Ethereum, this is the part that I think is different, right? So if you call something like BNB money, I'll agree. A broad definition of money, it is a money. Where is it a money? It's a money in the Binance economy, in the Binance casino. It would be as if a Wells Fargo, issued their stock basically and said, this stock is now a money that you can use at all of our bank branches, right? And like you can use it in our exchange too. And we call this Wells Fargo bucks. It's money. Who can change it? Shareholders of Wells Fargo.
Uber Sonic money.
Right? So it's different. It's a different thing. You're talking about the social consensus of an entire network that is backed in the same way that Bitcoin is backed, which is Ethereum, versus one person who can change issuance or change supply or be put in jail or undergo regulatory scrutiny, and everything could change. What we're comparing is something that is fundamentally decentralized to something that is centralized, and it's a false equivalence. I agree. Broad definition.
Well, I hope.
Money.
First of all, I hope no one goes. I hope no one is put in jail. I think that all of us in the cryptocurrency space are kind of pioneers. And I hope none of us ends up in jail for experimenting with this stuff. And I don't think that anyone will end up in jail for experimenting with this stuff.
That none of us as well.
Yes. But I think that Binance definitely has different trade-offs. You can use BNB for a lot of things, not just the casino. The casino definitely exists and it's huge. But it's not the only thing you can use BNB for. You can buy flights and hotel rooms with BNB. You can do a lot of, you can use your credit card and pay for it with BNB. You can do all those things like you can do with ETH, like you can do with a lot of other things. But I would say what you can do with ETH, sure. Yeah. But what can you do with ETH that you cannot do with BNB?
ETH is a permissionless bearer asset in the same way that Bitcoin is.
Right.
ETH is more similar to gold than it is to fiat. Binance is more similar to casino chips and fiat.
It's not about what can you do. It's about the assurances that you have that people can't do to you.
Well, but you don't have those assurances on Ethereum because we know that the supply was increased.
Hard disagree.
Yeah.
This is a fact.
No, I agree that the supply increased slightly. We know this. Yes.
No. I keep saying the supply. Of course, I mean the issuance schedule, but we know that it happened. We know that it happens, so we know that it's possible. We can't say that it's not possible. Obviously, if CZ is going to try to increase the BNB supply, he's not going to send a message on Telegram to his Telegram Binance group and say, "Hey guys, I increased the supply." Obviously, there's going to be a big campaign about how this is very important for the Binance ecosystem. It's going to be temporary, and they're going to burn it all back eventually. And the reasons for that is because they're going to make those amazing big changes. And of course, those are how political changes happen. You cannot predict those political changes. I don't think it's possible. The reason that Bitcoin is maybe different is because the community is so obsessed with that number, with that meme number of 21 million, that I think it's going to be very, very difficult to change their minds. And similarly, the BNB community is, very familiar with those numbers. 200 million is the total supply of BNB. 100 million are going to be burned. That's it. People are fairly familiar with that. On Ethereum, if you ask most people, they probably wouldn't even know that the issuance rate for Ethereum actually increased this year. They probably don't know this, but it happened. So I think it kind of shows you that
I'm pretty
those
sure people
things
know it happened.
are possible.
Well, I actually, so
I know a lot don't.
I agree with you, Udi. It's like, so I don't think people know about Ether at all. Ether's monetary. I don't think people know ultrasound money at all. I think very few of us do.
Yeah.
And like, if they did, ETH would be at 20K right now, to be honest. Right? Like, so I don't think people know that Ether is going into like the net negative issuance category. I don't think they know that the Ethereum network is producing $50 million a week, and a large portion of that is going to burn and like be deflationary on Ether. One thing I want to get back to though is like, we're not just talking about credibility of issuance, but it's also credibility of the transactions. When I make a transaction on Binance Smart Chain, CZ can reverse that transaction with a phone call, right? Like when I make a transaction on Ethereum, no one can do that. That's the difference between a network that is censorship resistant peer-to-peer and a network that is centralized and controlled by a very small validator set. And
I have to push back. I have to push back against that. CZ cannot just roll back transactions on Binance chain. First of all,
you don't think you can make a phone call to a group of the validators that the Binance community has elected? The Binance is collected.
You might make a phone call. They're down the hallway.
Sure. Yeah. Sorry. Telegram message, Discord, text, chat.
So no,
wouldn't be a phone call. Sorry, that's Boomer Ryan again.
Look. So here's the thing, you guys probably know that a lot of people in the cryptocurrency space tend to like kind of say, well, Bitcoin maximalists, they don't know what they're talking about. They don't know those other systems. They never even tried them. They don't know what's going on there. They don't understand the incentives there. And then just making uninformed jokes about things they don't understand. And I guess kind of what I'm going through here. So I guess where I'm going with this is, Ethereum maximalists are very similar to this in many ways. And people who tried Binance Smart Chain, I think would find, not that it's perfect, because it's definitely not perfect, but I think they would find that, first of all, it's very clear that the validators are not down the hole from CZ's office. That's very clear, because because of the way that it works.
Metaphorical.
Yeah, but it's just not the way that it works. So there are actual incentives to being a validator in Binance Chain. There is actual competition on becoming a validator in the Binance Smart Chain.
And I'll take your point that Ethereum maxis are like a fractal off of Bitcoin maxis, and then anything after Ethereum, the Ethereum maxis are like, no, that makes no sense in the way that Bitcoin maxis are to Ethereum. And then it just goes down the lines. Like then the Binance Smart Chain people turn to like Polkadot and be like, well, that makes no sense, and then whatever, it keeps on going. Like then it would get to Cardano, and Cardano's like, well, nothing beyond Cardano makes sense. At some point, like in the like the human centipede of like maximalism shitcoinery, at some point someone is right, as in like no one further than me makes any sense, and everyone up above me is just too much of a maximalist. At some point there's a sweet spot, and that sweet spot is Ethereum.
I actually don't think so. I think it's pretty clear that there's not going to be a point where everyone else below that level is necessarily definitely wrong about all of the things. I think that's almost for sure not true. Even in the most ridiculous blockchains out there, you can find things that are useful. Ethereum definitely did not come up with the idea of burning fees, for example. A bunch of others did that. EOS tried to do that and say, well, we're going to kill Ethereum by burning fees. That didn't work, but the idea was definitely adopted by the Ethereum community. That's how it should be.
Why
so I don't think
EOS
you could
fail?
say
like EOS is like BNB is just EOS with Binance backing it, right? It's like
BNB is like, it's just EOS that people use. So
right.
you can
with the EVM.
you can
EOS with an EVM.
with the EVM.
Binance.
Yes. Yeah. So you can kind of make fun of it and say, oh, it's just EOS. But I think it's clear that there's more than that going on Binance Smart Chain, because of the sheer volumes and the sheer number of people using it. And you can see that people are using it just because, like, I'm not even going to try to tell you that I think that projects like what's it called, like Safe Moon would be something that I recommend that people take part of. I definitely do not. But
I got a question for you.
Yeah, you took off the sunglasses, so it must be big.
Yeah, well, it comes from the YouTube comments. This is Franco M. He made a comparison that I really like. He goes, BTC is to Doge as ETH is to BNB. Agree or disagree?
I wonder how deep I want to go into this, because I do agree, and I don't think that's. I think you shouldn't underestimate it, though. I definitely do not underestimate Doge.
Oh, I don't.
That might seem.
I couldn't be convinced that Doge is like literally Bitcoin silver in the way that Litecoin wished it was. The hypersound memery or whatever it is.
I think that, there's, and I think that a lot of people in Ethereum kind of understand that there's this idea of community coins or creator coins or influencer coins. And I think that a lot of people underestimate how big those can be. And something like Dogecoin can be argued to be, an influencer coin of the one and only Elon Musk. And then you should have to ask yourself, like, how big do you think Elon Musk can make it be? And I think that I've seen some people make, in my opinion, the mistake of saying, well, this could threaten Bitcoin. In my opinion, it could threaten the entire cryptocurrency industry, because if you think about how those wars of inflows are going to work, if you come to someone like Elon Musk, I would assume that he has to ask himself, like, do I really want to put all of my resources and all of the investors I have access to? Do I have to put all of that into Bitcoin, or do I want to put all of that into Ethereum, or do I want to, create my own thing that I can control? And I think that people like that, the answer is almost obvious what they're going to choose. And then the question is, well, are you sure that something like Ethereum can be bigger than, Elon Musk bringing all of his traditional friends into the system? I'm not sure. I don't know.
I think Elon Musk is coming to Ethereum. I think he's already here.
We'll see. He might be. I just don't.
Is he here on this live stream?
All right, guys, bring in our next guest, Elon Musk.
Wow.
Does he have like sunglasses on?
Oh, yeah.
He's at David's Airbnb right now. Hopefully. Udi,
I think. Yeah, sorry. I think that it's a long discussion, but I think that I wouldn't underestimate. What's going on there.
Udi, you've articulated this well. I think we've got to start thinking about closing this up. I'm going to throw a few thoughts at you and actually see, like, maybe where we disagree or agree, right? So, like, here are my thoughts hearing the pitch for BNB as hypersound money, right? So first thing is, I would not call myself an Ethereum maximalist, right? More of a decentralization maximalist, a bankless maximalist, if you will, right? So, like, I'll say that. I also believe in a multi-chain future, right? So Polygon is a chain, Binance is a chain. There are side chains. There are also layer 2s that are secured. by something like Ethereum, right? So like I also believe in a multi-chain future. I think that BNB, Binance Chain itself will ultimately find itself competing against not Ethereum, but other side chains and layer twos, right? So like you could see that in what's happening with Polygon and Matic. Like traffic is outflowing Binance Smart Chain right now. It's inflowing to Polygon and Matic. And like, what's the difference between Polygon and Binance Chain? Like maybe not a lot, you could argue.
Political
Maybe
alignment
both,
with Ethereum.
political alignment, both are kind of side chains. But like the last thing I'll say is I actually agree with you that BNB is a reasonably good asset and a money. It's just a casino money. The reason it's a reasonably good asset is because I think Coinbase stock is a reasonably good asset too. Like to your point, Binance, the company, the entity, the exchange, the casino owned by CZ and crew is like a hugely profitable business. Why would you not want to own that thing as a profit maximalist who believes in crypto? It's going to do well. It's a new crypto bank, right? When we say money, though, it is a money that is exclusive to the Binance economy. It is not a money in the same way that Bitcoin or gold or Ether are money backed by social consensus of a decentralized network. It is money inside of a casino. So transactions don't have the same settlement guarantees. The issuance policy does not have the same settlement guarantees. And I think there's probably an upper limit to what that money is. Will people like Brian Armstrong from Coinbase be really excited about storing his wealth in BNB token versus Bitcoin and ETH? Probably not. He's probably going to store his wealth in Bitcoin, ETH, and Coinbase shares, right? So like there is a limited surface area for something like BNB to exist as money. So overall, like I hear what you're saying about hypersound money, but like I would put the money in like air quotes. It's kind of money. Hypersound casino coins. Okay, I'll buy that.
I'll respond to that. That I think you're not wrong on pretty much all of your points, and I think that the thing that people might be missing is that this is where money is going. Money is going to be Elon coins and CZ coins and YouTuber coins and TikToker coins. This is what it's going to look like. And you might say, well, BSC is more likely to compete against Ethereum sidechains than Ethereum itself. I kind of agree with that. The question is, are those Ethereum sidechains not going to be bigger than Ethereum itself? And I think that all evidence points to them being bigger because they're already attracting more volume, more just transaction volume. They're already attracting more people who use them. So it seems like they're in many metrics already bigger. And I think that they'll continue to be bigger simply because they're not capped. And you can bring outside influence, like, you know, a YouTuber has his own audience, and this YouTuber can onboard those people on his own platform if he wants to, for example. And I think you're going to see more and more of those things. And the question is, can Ethereum compete with that? I don't think it should. I think Ethereum is great without competing with that, but I don't think it can be as big as that. And I think that's kind of what something like Binance's thing is showing us, that those things can very quickly grow from zero to bigger than Ethereum in a few months. And this is going to happen again. This is not the last time that this is happening. This is going to happen again, again, and again with other coins, with other entities, with other individuals probably. And this does not make Ethereum less valuable, in my opinion. But it does pose the question of whether Ethereum is going to be bigger than those. I think it seems like it's already not. So I don't think it's going to be.
Fascinating thesis at the end, Udi. If influencer coins are the next big thing, when Udi coins, sir?
No, I do not have the. Unfortunately, I do not have the following and audience that will be required to make Udi
I don't know,
global
the
money.
500 and plus people watching this stream right now. That's pretty good showing. I don't know. I think you've got some people following you.
You got to start.
Oh yeah, we've got.
Wait,
airdrop
it
What's
to the
cat
cat
coin
people.
then?
Airdrop it to the cat coin people.
Do you even know like which platform it uses?
No clue.
Catcoin?
No, it's literally the first I've heard of it.
Yeah.
Market
Probably
buy.
ETH.
Udi's market buying on Uniswap right now.
I'm trying.
Guys,
all right, Udi,
hey,
this was the second time that you and I have hung out on a show, and this one was much more fun, I would like to say.
this was a lot of fun.
I enjoyed it. We need to thank CMS again, right?
Yes.
Yeah, look, thanks to CMS Holdings, 100K goes to Gitcoin public good funding as a result of this episode. And that would not have been possible without Udi. And thank you for being a guest, Udi. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you for hosting me, guys.
So if anyone has another 100K and you want to fund another...
How much to get CZ
podcast
on the pod, Ryan? To $250,000 for CZ?
Yeah, what are we doing next? I mean, you put it in a good defense for CZ, so it's got to be worth something, Udi.
Right.
So have you looked into that influencer mining, little CZ funds for yourself?
No, I think, you did. I think you kind of started this conversation with kind of asking why, or maybe it was one of your tweets. What do I really care about Binance Chain?
Yeah, let's end with that. I'm curious. Why?
Yeah. So I think that there's, I kind of started saying that. I think that there's, if the bull market continues, assuming it's not over, assuming this is not the last crypto episode ever, then I think that we're gonna have a lot of crazy things that we're not thinking of right now, and a lot of people coming from outside of the space entirely were going to try to make themselves a thing, and we're already starting to see that, but I think we'll see that much in a much bigger volume. And I think that people right now are kind of looking at maybe kind of the things that do not matter as much, like technology, is that going to scale? Is that really fully decentralized? Because when you look into the details closely, you see that there are trade-offs for everything. There's nothing that is fully decentralized. There are going to be trade-offs, everything. And a lot of people a lot of times people don't even understand those trade-offs. So I think that this is not the most important thing. There's things like distribution and influence, and those things are very important. And I think we all kind of have to look at those things and see how they're going to affect the respective ecosystems we talk about. Can be Bitcoin, can be Ethereum. I think the aliens are coming. All of the people who are outside of our world are gonna come in. If it's gonna get as big as we think that it is, then people are gonna come in and they're gonna shake our beliefs in a very big way, I think. So that's why I'm interested in that.
Look, guys, this ends on a fantastic point, to be honest. I think if Bankless has a blind spot in general, it's probably that we are decentralization maximalists, and possibly the next 99% who join us in the crypto journey don't care about these things.
Right.
That is probably the bear case for Bankless and for Bitcoin and for Ether, and maybe the bull case for the crypto banks and something like BNB. Udi, really enjoyed this discussion, actually. So I would do this for free, man. I don't know about you, David, but this is actually good. I was expecting to say that at the end of this episode.
Best compliment I can hope to have. Thank you.
Oh,
all right. I think we have to shut it down there.
Udi, if people want to learn more about you and follow you on Twitter and do other things related to Udi, what should they do?
Just don't do that.
Okay. Fair enough. All right. Well, thanks for coming on and showing us your thesis about the space.
Hypersound money.
Thanks, guys.
Ultrasound money. Hashtag.
Ultrasound money.
Bye, guys.
Hey, we hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, head over to Bankless HQ right now to develop your crypto investing skills and learn how to free yourself from banks and gain your financial independence. We recommend joining our daily newsletter, podcast, and community as a Bankless Premium subscriber to get the most out of your Bankless experience. You'll get access to our market analysis, our alpha leaks, and exclusive content, and even the Bankless token for airdrops, raffles, and unlocks. If you're interested in crypto, the Bankless community is where you want to be. Click the link in the description to become a Bankless Premium subscriber today. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for in-depth interviews with industry leaders, Ask Me Anythings, and weekly roll-ups where we summarize the week in crypto and other fantastic content. Thanks everyone for watching and being on the journey as we build out the Bankless Nation.